Welcome back. Boa Group, one of Africa's largest foods and manufacturing conglomerates and net famine of Israel, has signed an agreement with the largest fully automated drip irrigation project of its kind in Nigeria for the Boa Lesotho Sugar Company in Kwara State. This is expected to cover over 4,000 hectares in its first phase. The group executive director of the group, Mr. Kabiru, who was speaking at the MOU signing ceremony in the nation's capital, Abuja, explains that the sugar plantation is expected to produce 250,000 tons of white refined sugar.
For some time now, the federal government has led a campaign for the consumption, production and value addition to the nation's sugar industry. Its effort has to a very large extent yielded some level of investment in the sector, especially through the implementation of the National Sugar Master Plan. This meeting, organized by Boa Group, is looking at enhancing local sugar production through improved technology, which is regarded as the first of its kind in the country.
The drip irrigation is the highest technology of irrigation anywhere in the world. You are able to increase the yield, you are able to conserve your water usage, and you are able to do it very easily in an automated system that does not require a lot of manual operation, which will hamper your operations. It is expensive, but it's a very, very high-tech irrigation, probably the highest tech irrigation anywhere in the world.
For the technical experts, the partnership is expected to yield benefits for both parties.
We are going to use our expertise, our experience, our knowledge and our great technology to implement it in the Boa project, and together with their people and our people, make sure that it's a great success. So that is our role, to take what we know very well what to do as the global leaders and implement it together with Boa in their project.
The Director General of the National Sugar Development Council is confident that the new technology adopted by Boa Group will help meet its target for local sugar production.
For us to be able to get to where we want to get to in the sugar industry, we need to leverage on technology, and this is just one aspect of the technologies that we will leverage on. The irrigation is there, the mechanization of the field is there, the factory, all those, all of them, you have technologies that will drive the processes and get us to become very competitive as we go.
The deal is thereafter signed. The partnership is expected to help in the production of about 250,000 tons of white refined sugar, 20 million liters of ethanol, employment of over 10,000 people, and generate some 35 megawatts of electricity every year. The deal, amongst other things, is also expected to create jobs and increase local production.
Just before we delve into the world of business, the 10 Turkish sailors who were kidnapped last month in Bayelsa State have been released. The 10 men were bound for Ivory Coast aboard a container ship when the vessel was intercepted by pirates off the Nigerian coast on July the 16th. According to the Turkish media, the released sailors are in good health but did not state if a ransom has been paid. The kidnap and subsequent release of the Turkish sailors is coming less than 1 month after 4 Turkish nationals were also kidnapped in Kwara State. Well, analysts have made forecasts on inflation in Nigeria for the month of July. Let's hear more from Bisi Adebayo.
You First. First Bank.
Business news. Analysts expect Nigeria's inflation to taper in the month of July ahead of the upcoming harvest season expected around September. The research arm of FSDH forecast the headline rate lower at 11.01%, while analysts at the financial derivatives company say a slimmer margin of 10.98%. Despite the expected drop in the inflation rate in the next few months, FSDH research expects increased volatility at the interbank market and a gradual increase in the rates at the open market operations from August through to December 2019. Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics is expected to release the inflation data for July next week, Friday. Attracting diaspora savings is one of the ways to tackle capital flight from African economies, and that's the opinion of the director of London-based GBS Africa Consulting, Agnes Gital, who also told Channels Television's Business Morning program that there is a need to direct such investments from Africans abroad to drive infrastructural and economic development.
Diaspora savings is, I think there's a report on the amount of savings that diaspora has, and that can be invested back home. It's how do we attract them? How do we provide incentives and attract these Africans to put money in our region? You're aware that most of the diaspora remittances goes purely for sustenance and not investment. We need to come up with innovative ways to try and channel that to projects that are sustainable and that add value to our countries. A lot of Africans want to be at home. Trust me, if I could work out of Nairobi or Lagos, I would. But a lot of Africans left because of lack of opportunities at home. So there is a perception that our government able to protect our investments. And because they're seeing other investors, so international investors, making a kill out of our market, like, look, we can actually benefit our people and also benefit, make a profit out of our investment. So it's a conversation. Banks, I have seen a lot of banks, Sterling banks, EcoBank, there's a conversation of really getting the private commercial banks engaging with the diaspora, not just for remittances, but how can we channel your money, your hard-earned money or your savings and invest in projects. And I think for me, that's the way forward.
The International Energy Agency says mounting signs of an economic slowdown and a ramping up of the U.S.-China trade war have caused global oil demand to grow at its lowest pace since the financial crisis of 2008, while lowering its global demand growth forecast for 2019 and 2020 to 1.1 million and 1.3 million barrels per day. The IEA cites China as the only major source of growth at 500,000 barrels per day for the first half of this year. According to the agency, although supply curbs by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies have tightened the oil market, the balance will be temporary as it forecasts robust non-OPEC production growth in 2020 at 2.2 million barrels per day. And the Nigerian equities market ends the first full week of August negative as the main index declined by 0.43% to close at 27,306.81, erasing the 0.05% gain recorded on Thursday. Here's Layo Adekoke with more details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Heavy losses from banking sector key components overshadowed gains recorded from 4 other counters of the NSE as the stock market ends the first full week of August negative. The downturn, which resulted to a 0.43% drop in the main index and 57 billion naira loss in total market value, comes amid price increases recorded by MTN Nigeria, Lafarge and Forte Oil as the market struggles to make a comeback. The share price of Continental Reassurance tops a list of 11 gainers with an 11% advance, while AICO led 14 other losers down by 10%. Meanwhile, GT Bank is the major contributor to a total volume of 220 million shares, with nearly 130 million units of its shares traded today. The domestic stock market will be closed on Monday and Tuesday next week in observance of the Muslim holiday. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Thank you, Layo. Now, other stocks around the world also traded lower today amid renewed trade war fears as Wall Street concluded a wild week. Well, let's see the closing figures. And that's it on Business News. Thank you for watching. I'm BC Adebayo.
You First. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, BC. On the foreign scene, China has ordered the Hong Kong-based airline Cathay Pacific to suspend any staff who supports pro-democracy protests in the territory. Beijing's demand coincides with a peaceful rally at Hong Kong's airport, where thousands occupied a terminal. Here's Simon Pusey from our London studio with more international news. in around the world in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. Demonstrators have gathered at Hong Kong's airport, marking the start of 3 days of unauthorized rallies in the Chinese territory. Activists dressed in black sat in the arrivals hall waving banners to raise awareness among international visitors. Protests have gripped Hong Kong for weeks, beginning with anger at an extradition bill and morphing into demands for greater freedoms. The former British colony is part of China but enjoys more autonomy. Freedoms activists fear are being increasingly eroded. However, the city's chief executive says the protests are causing nothing but misery for people.
A small minority of people, as you have said, they did not mind destroying Hong Kong's economy. They have no stake in the society which so many people have helped to build. And that's why they resort to all this violence and obstructions, causing huge damage to the economy and to the daily life of the people.
A security lockdown in Indian-administered Kashmir remains largely in place, although residents have been allowed to attend Friday prayers in some local mosques. However, the main mosque in Srinagar is closed and tight restrictions continue. Thousands of troops are still patrolling the streets 4 days after the Indian government revoked the Muslim-majority state's autonomy. The area has been under a virtual communications blackout since Sunday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi appeared on state media on Thursday to defend his government's highly controversial decision and said a new era was beginning for the region. But one expert is worried about the potential for civil war.
One would hope there's no military retaliation, because that's obviously going to be absolutely devastating for a region that's already extremely fragile, and we can't even imagine a nuclear war in that region.
The leader of Italy's ruling League party, Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini, has declared the governing coalition is unworkable and said the only way forward was to hold fresh elections. The shock announcement follows a period of intense public feuding between the right-wing League and its coalition partner, the anti-establishment Five Star Movement, and it throws Italy into deeper political uncertainty. Parliament, which is now in its summer recess, could reconvene next week to carry out the necessary steps, Salvini said, referring to the need for a no-confidence vote in the government and the resignation of the Premier. Leaders of ethnically split Cyprus have agreed to pursue efforts to resume peace talks, although one side said serious disagreements remained. Cyprus was divided in a Turkish invasion in 1974, triggered by a brief Greek-inspired coup, and countless attempts over the years to broker peace between the two sides have failed. In their first meeting since February, Greek Cypriot leader and Turkish Cypriot leader said they had a constructive exchange of views. The last round of UN-sponsored negotiations collapsed in 2017. Military drills involving Western NATO alliance states and Georgia have finished after 2 weeks of exercises. Speaking in front of the military allies who took part in the drills, the Georgian president said that the exercises show commitment to further cooperation with the West. Georgia has US backing for its bid to join the NATO alliance, but the move is firmly opposed by Russia, which fought a 5-day war with Georgia in 2008. Flash floods in Cambodia have killed at least 3 people after heavy rains struck the country's coast. At least 2 of the deaths were caused by a wall and fence collapsing on the victims in separate areas. Footage broadcast on local TV showed floodwaters rushing through the streets of the coastal city of Sihanoukville. Cambodia's government issued a warning to coastal provinces on Thursday as storms looked set to hit the area. Roads have been closed and some areas evacuated. Chinese authorities have declared a red alert as a powerful typhoon heads towards the eastern coast. Typhoon Lekima is currently battering Taiwan with winds of more than 190 kilometers per hour and is due to make landfall in China's Zhejiang province on Saturday. Emergency teams have been deployed to the region to guide relief work. Thousands of people further up the coast in Shanghai have been warned to prepare to evacuate. And finally, 2 twin panda cubs have been born at a zoo in Belgium. 10-year-old Hao Hao gave birth to a male cub followed by a female one. According to the zoo, the birth of twin pandas is extremely rare, both in captivity and in the wild, and one of the babies often dies, though both of these as yet unnamed newborns were in excellent health. Giant pandas have a 24-hour period of fertility per year, one of the reasons of the low birth rate for the species. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thank you, Simon. Give the Cubs a few years and it'll be very big. Well, still ahead on the news at 10, Anthony Joshua's heavyweight rematch against Andy Ruiz Jr. for the IBF, WBA, WBO titles to hold on Saturday, December the 7th in Saudi Arabia. That's in sports news. Please join us again.